think everyone is asking the same question in terms of crypto and Bitcoin. Where's the bottom? And the answer, I think, is really complex, but I do think we have some things out there macroeconomically that are showing us sort of what's going on. Most of these things I've already talked about, but I'm just going to go ahead and give an update on my thoughts with the matter and where we're headed. First, we have the yen carry trade. Everyone should be familiar with the situation with that if you've been watching my channel. Basically, people are having to return money to loans that they took out at super low interest rates because the interest rates have been rising and it's no longer profitable or beneficial to hold those loans. And so they're returning money that they're probably using in high risk assets such as crypto or elsewhere around the world stocks. But crypto, being one of the highest risk assets, is of course taking one of the biggest beatings. And to add fuel to the fire, we now know that yes, we did get data for the September jobs report, which unemployment was at 4.4%, but we also found out that we won't be getting any data for October because of the government shutdown. And not only that, but the next jobs report for November won't come out until after the Fed decision in December. So the Fed will literally be going blind into their decision as to whether to drop interest rates or keep them the same without knowing what the unemployment rate will be, among other factors from that jobs report. So this is shaping up to be quite the perfect storm because both of those factors create quite a bit of uncertainty in the market, and it seems like everybody is just swiftly moving their way out with quite the gradual decline we see on Bitcoin. It's just gradually getting more and more aggressive as people are selling out of Bitcoin and the market in general. Now, there are talks of stimulus on the table. Trump's been talking about using some of the tariff revenue to pay back a $2,000 dividend to all Americans making a certain wage or less, which that would help boost the economy and increase asset prices. Unfortunately, it would also devalue your dollar, but that's a whole nother story that you can find in some of my other videos I posted. And it looks like that's not going to be coming until mid-2026, as Trump, of course, wants to make sure that that comes just in time for elections so that everybody votes Republican again. So macroeconomically, things are just really not looking great. Now, as you know, I like to mix macroeconomics with technicals, so we'll go ahead and jump over to the technical analysis. I'm going to drop it right here. First and foremost, you're going to see the return of that elliptical. Now, I want to be clear, the bottom portion of that elliptical does not matter. It's really just the trend line that we're watching where Bitcoin is hitting it and then dipping further back down. In my last video, I talked about how a lot of people think when the RSI, which we can see at the bottom, I've circled here, hits 20 or hits that line right around 20, people start to get excited, think it's going to go back up, and they invest. But unfortunately, as I mentioned in my last video, if it dips below 20, it can often lead to substantial price just dump, plummets, whatever you want to call it. It is sometimes catastrophic. And what we're seeing isn't quite what I would call catastrophic, but it is not great. And it might be the beginning of a further move down. What we're looking at right now is the daily. I'm going to go ahead and switch that up a little bit. We're going to take a look at the weekly time frame, okay? And we can see that we actually are coming up to some significant spots on the weekly chart here. First, we're touching what's called the 100 EMA. And if you go back to my previous videos, I explain exactly what that is, but we're tapping on that, as well as you'll see a horizontal line I've drawn where it seems like we have previous support right around this 86K mark. Now, what does this mean? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean anything good yet, but it could indicate a potential bottom, right? So we want to see some positive flows from here, or at least things start to fizzle out. First and foremost, I want to see that elliptical start to break as price breaks upward. That would show me that we are starting to potentially start to come out of that liquidation trend that we've been in from both the carry trade and that death spiral that has started as a result of it. But even then, we want to be careful. I used 100K as a reference point for a bounce. That would be somewhere where I would consider we might be moving more in an uptrend. I'd probably lower that now. I don't know exactly where, maybe 95 to 98K, but we do just want to see some kind of significant bounce before we assume that we have found our bottom and are starting to move upward again. And let's also be clear, if this does not work out right here and it breaks, then there is a strong possibility that we end up going lower to one of those other horizontal lines, or possibly even the 200 EMA, which is down at 70K ish, give or take. But 80K, 70K, those would be our next weekly support lines. We could sweep down below where we're at now and not quite make it to 80. I mean, anything is still possible, but these from a weekly standpoint are structural barriers where we might find some support. Now, if these break, do I think all hope is lost? No, not necessarily. I still believe that this is just an unwinding of mass amounts of leverage that have been out there, both from the carry trade as well as there's just general, I think, liquidations happening of long positions. Something I've noticed is the long short ratio on Bitcoin continues to remain high, which to me that only means that basically people are going to the casino trying to find a bottom because they keep betting that there's going to be an upward move at some point. It's probably not a bad bet, but market makers are always looking to liquidate when they can. But still, for me, myself, I am holding on to all of my crypto. I haven't sold any of it. In fact, not too long ago, I bought just a little bit more, and I expect that we will see over time things rebound as stimulus is introduced, interest rates begin to drop, all of the things that should come in the future as we pivot and try to save the economy from the imminent crash that will happen. I think it's bound to come. I just don't know when, but when it comes, I expect it will be quite the move to the upside. Could be wrong, but these are my thoughts.